Red Bull's commitment to Sergio Perez just before Formula 1's summer break took the sport by surprise. With the Mexican driver not finishing higher than 7th over the last 8 races, many thought that a swap in the summer break was on the cards, but the team decided that now wasn't the time. But in Red Bull's driver-eat-driver structure, the fight for a place at the top team never ends, even if on the outside it doesn't look like there's a space for a promotion. Yuki Tsunoda has shown his intent to replace Sergio Perez, and today I'll check it out, as well as what is going on with Daniel Ricciardo's lack of a contract. So, don't go anywhere. The second half of the Formula 1 season has plenty of storylines to follow, but the fate of both Red Bull-backed teams is one of the most fascinating. On paper, 3 out of the 4 drivers within the Red Bull group are already confirmed for 2025. Despite the best efforts of Mercedes, Max Verstappen looks set to stay with the team for another year. His teammate Sergio Perez could technically be at Red Bull until the end of 2026 after signing a new deal before the Canadian Grand Prix. At VCARB, Yuki Tsunoda has signed a new contract, keeping him at the team until the end of 2025. Daniel Ricciardo's fate is far less certain though, with the former Red Bull driver not showing the performance levels he used to at the team. The Aussie is currently without a contract for 2025, and with some very promising junior drivers desperate for a shot in F1, Ricciardo's career is on the brink. The Aussie was originally brought back to the team as a backup in case Sergio Perez failed to perform. At the time, Perez was a regular podium finisher, but when compared to his teammate Max Verstappen, he was well off the pace. The 2023 Red Bull car was the most dominant ever created in Formula 1, and many thought that Perez was not doing it justice by only finishing on the podium in 5 of the 11 races before Daniel Ricciardo returned to Formula 1. The rumor was that if Perez couldn't close the gap to Verstappen, then Ricciardo would be in place to step in and take over the seat. Checo's form would take a dip after Ricciardo returned to Formula 1 at the Hungarian Grand Prix. He would only secure 4 podiums in the remaining 12 races, but secured Red Bull's first ever 1-2 finish in the Drivers' Championship, which was enough to see him retained. This season, with a much more competitive field, the difference in performance levels between Verstappen and Perez has been much more obvious. While it didn't matter too much last year, it does now matter, and unless Checo can turn his form around after the summer break, he's likely to find himself out of a seat at the end of the season. Discussions about replacing him during the summer break were had, but Red Bull decided not to make the change because there simply wasn't a better option. Daniel Ricciardo's poor performances have done nothing to show he's capable of that position, but more on that later. Putting a rookie into that position would create far too much pressure on them. But there is Yuki Tsunoda, whose performances this season have been much improved, as has his attitude. While Yuki may not have gotten a promotion over the summer break, he does think he's the right man to be Verstappen's teammate. In a recent interview, he set his sights on Sergio Perez's job, talking about how he would handle being Max Verstappen's teammate. "I think I can fight hard with him. I won't make life easy for him for sure. Obviously, he's very fast and he's very consistent. So, Drivers' Championship-wise, I wouldn't say I have massive confidence that I can straight away beat him in the Drivers' Championship from the first year." Fighting Verstappen hard is not something that Sergio Perez has achieved this season or in any season at Red Bull. While Red Bull might not want someone who can actually challenge Max consistently for a world championship, Checo's 28 points in the last 8 races is a problem for the Constructors' title hopes. Tsunoda's statement sets his intent. He knows he can't fight Max for a world championship, but he's saying he can definitely do a better job than Perez has. Yuki's statement is very similar to the one that Sergio Perez has given in the past. Thinking you can beat Verstappen and actually beating him are 2 very different things. It's a statement that George Russell boldly declared when it was announced he would be driving alongside Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes. The young Brit said he was a match for Lewis Hamilton, something that he discovered was far easier to say than actually do, despite besting the 7-time world champion in their first season together. These drivers are multiple world champions for a reason. Despite the confidence in his own abilities and the belief he could, at least in time, go toe-to-toe with Verstappen at Red Bull, Tsunoda is acutely aware of the opportunity to learn from the Dutch driver. He highlighted the 61-time Grand Prix winner's knack for mastering difficult and changing weather conditions. The Japanese driver pointed out how Verstappen's ability to perform when the conditions are against him is a sign of just how good he is. I have confidence that I can fight hard against him, and there is a lot of things I can learn, especially consistency with any conditions like half-wet, dry, dry-wet, wet conditions, he explains. Multiple condition changes, he's always somehow adapted really well. That's why he was very consistent last year. Being able to 19 races and last year, there were a lot of multiple weather changes, and those moments won't be as much car performance dominated. If you're a really bad driver and driving a good car, you're still a bad driver and will easily lose positions, so that's why he's able to win consistently. So those things for sure, I can learn a lot. Whether Tsunoda gets the chance to learn from Verstappen or not, we'll have to wait and see. But Red Bull aren't giving up on Checo just yet. Red Bull have denied claims that the reason they kept Perez on for the second half of the season was due to a request by Formula One owners Liberty Media. Instead, they think he is the best man for the job, though they are willing to admit that he needs some help. Red Bull could simply bank on Perez delivering his Budapest race form or Spa qualifying form on a more consistent basis. But the evidence of recent months suggests a more drastic change may be needed. And that's why, according to ESPN, the world champions are considering reverting back to a car spec from the earlier part of the year. That, in essence, would mean taking upgrades off his RB20. Perez seemed to be comfortable in March and April, notching 4 podiums in 5 races. The caveat there, though, is that the team enjoyed a much larger advantage over the field, who soon wiped it out with upgrades of their own. The loss of that competitive advantage is obvious in the results of Max Verstappen, who secured 4 race wins in the opening 5 races, but has only secured 3 in the following 9 Grand Prix. While taking upgrades off the RB20 may make it easier for Checo to drive, the raw performance lost by doing so could leave him even slower than he is now, something that Red Bull really can't afford. Red Bull Technical Director Pierre Wash has said that new upgrades to the 2024 car will be aimed at adding performance in a way that both drivers can make use of it, which was part of the idea behind its Hungary update Package 2. Max Verstappen famously prefers a car that tends to oversteer, utilizing his talent to control that. A car that oversteers is inherently faster, but is far harder to control than a car that doesn't understeer. If the team can add performance without inducing more oversteer, something they've done many times over the past 2 seasons, then the car will gain performance which Perez can actually use. While Ricciardo may have been brought to VCARB as backup for Perez, Red Bull don't think he can make use of the current car any better than Checo can. They're taking some of the blame for Perez's performances. If Ricciardo had performed better so far this season, though, they may have been more inclined to give him a shot. Daniel endured a stuttering start to the season when VCARB was at its most competitive and trails 10 points behind his teammate Yuki Tsunoda. He has managed to match the young Japanese driver in points gained over the past 6 races, though. Despite the upturn in results, Helmut Marko has admitted that it wasn't enough to warrant a promotion. Daniel was put in the car, and if he would have been significantly faster than Yuki there was an idea to bring him back to Red Bull Racing, but he's also had his ups and downs. So far, he didn't fulfill the criteria to be a Red Bull Racing driver. The 8-time F1 race winner's place at either Red Bull team is not assured in 2025, as Red Bull reserve driver Liam Lawson appears destined to be handed a seat alongside Tsunoda. Marko has indicated that VCARB has chosen to hand Lawson, who impressed when he covered the sidelined Ricciardo last season, his long-awaited step to a full-time seat. It was a clear statement from the shareholders that Racing Bulls is a junior team, and this route will be how the future will look, Marko said. It's a tough time for someone like Liam, especially as he jumped into the car under very difficult circumstances and did very well. We rate him high and he will get his chance. Just wait. September, when Red Bull's option on Lawson expires, you'll have an answer. What will happen with the Red Bull teams after the summer break is a fascinating conundrum. While it looks like the 2025 lineups will be Verstappen and Perez and Tsunoda and Lawson, that could still all change depending on how Checo performs. With Isaac Hajar making waves in F2, he'll be keen to make the step up to F1. Red Bull have a glut of talent behind the scenes, and they may need to make some brutal decisions before the end of the season, and Ricciardo and Perez could be the ones who find themselves cut. Do you think Tsunoda should get a shot in a Red Bull seat in 2025, or will Perez turn his form around? Let me know your thoughts on Red Bull's 2025 lineups in the comments down below. And until next time, drive safe and bye for now.